How do you even start understanding a philosopher whose name most people can't pronounce, who wrote sentences that sound like thunderclaps, and who sported a mustache so big it practically needed its own passport? Let's begin with the name. It's not Nietzsche. It's not Nietzsche. Nope. The first part sounds like knee, and the second part sounds like cha. So together, Nietzsche. That's it. You've already conquered the first challenge of understanding one of the most misunderstood thinkers in history. But pronunciation is the easy part. The real challenge is getting past Nietzsche's explosive one-liners, the stuff people quote without actually reading the guy. What doesn't kill me makes me stronger. God is dead, and we have killed him. And let's not forget that colossal mustache, which honestly deserves its own documentary. But if we look past the edgy quotes, past the memified version of Nietzsche floating around the internet, something amazing happens. We uncover a thinker who's not just provocative, but wise, insightful, and surprisingly helpful for navigating modern life. Nietzsche doesn't pamper us with comforting lies, he doesn't sugarcoat, he grabs us by the shoulders and says, "Become who you truly are." And in this video, we're going to unpack exactly what that means. Who was Friedrich Nietzsche really? Friedrich Nietzsche was born in 1844 in a peaceful little German village. His father was the town priest, and early on, people expected the young Friedrich to follow in those footsteps. Quiet, disciplined, maybe even pious. But Nietzsche wasn't exactly cut out for small-town predictability. He was brilliant from the start. At school and university, he tore through ancient Greek like it was his native language. By his 20s, an age when most of us are trying to figure out how taxes work, Nietzsche was appointed a professor at the University of Basel, one of the youngest in Europe. But academia frustrated him. He hated petty academic arguments, boring faculty meetings, and intellectual conformity. So he walked away. Imagine that, leaving a prestigious university job in your 20s to go live in the mountains and write books nobody was reading. That's dedication, or stubbornness, or both. Nietzsche eventually moved to Sils Maria, high in the Swiss Alps, one of the most peaceful and beautiful places in Europe. He lived alone, walking for hours each day along mountain paths, thinking, writing, brooding, rewriting. Those long alpine walks produced some of the most influential books in Western philosophy. The Birth of Tragedy, Human, All Too Human, The Gay Science, Thus Spoke Zarathustra, Beyond Good and Evil, On the Genealogy of Morals. But if you're imagining a glamorous writer's life, think again. The man behind the mustache, his personal struggles. Despite his genius, Nietzsche's personal life was a mess. 1. Family problems. He once wrote, "I don't like my mother, and it's painful even for me to hear my sister's voice." Ouch. Thanksgiving dinner must have been fun. 2. Women rejected him. He fell deeply in love several times, but women kept turning him down. One woman literally rejected him 3 times and ran off with his best friend. 3. No one bought his books. Imagine writing works that would shape the future of psychology, philosophy, literature, and selling like 40 copies. That's what Nietzsche was. 4. His mental breakdown. At the age of 44, while living in Turin, Nietzsche witnessed a horse being beaten by its owner. Overwhelmed with emotion, he threw his arms around the horse, crying out, "I understand you." This moment marked the collapse of his mental health. He never recovered and spent his remaining 11 years in silence, cared for by his mother and sister. It's one of the saddest endings in philosophy. But here's the strange twist. Despite all the suffering, rejection, loneliness, and illness, Nietzsche built a philosophy full of strength and courage. He believed deeply in human potential, human greatness, and the idea that we can overcome nearly anything life throws at us. And that brings us to his central idea, the idea of Selbstüberwindung, self-overcoming. To Nietzsche, life isn't about comfort. It's about transformation, growth, becoming. He said we all have obstacles, traumas, insecurities, family issues, heartbreaks, failures. But instead of letting these crush us, a great-souled person, what Nietzsche calls an Übermensch, uses these struggles as fuel. Not because suffering is good, but because we can rise through suffering. Pain clarifies what matters. Failure exposes truth. Rejection builds resilience. Hardship creates depth. Self-overcoming means having the courage to face who you really are, what you really want, and what your life is really made of. But Nietzsche didn't stop at broad ideas. He gave 4 concrete recommendations for becoming stronger, wiser, more authentic human beings. Let's break them down.
Nietzsche's 4 key lessons. 1. Own up to your envy. Nietzsche didn't think envy was a sin. He thought it was a compass. According to him, Christianity, and society in general, teaches us to hide our envy, to pretend we don't feel it, to shame ourselves for wanting what other people have. But Nietzsche says, envy reveals who you could become. If you envy a writer, maybe you're meant to write. If you envy a successful entrepreneur, maybe something in you wants to build. If you envy someone with a strong body, or deep intellect, or creative career, it's a message. This could be you. Move. Nietzsche didn't believe everyone gets what they want. He certainly didn't. But he believed we must try, to fight for our real desires. And if we fail, to mourn with dignity, not resentment. That, to him, is what the Übermensch does. 2. Don't be a Christian, at least not the old kind. This is where Nietzsche becomes controversial. He once joked, in the entire New Testament, there is only one person worth respecting, Pilate. But behind the edgy comment is a deeper idea. Nietzsche believed Christianity became a moral system invented by the powerless to cope with frustration and envy. He called this slave morality, Sklavenmoral. In his story, early Christians were powerless, marginalized people in the Roman Empire. They craved status, freedom, pleasure, knowledge, but couldn't get them. So they flipped the script by turning weakness into virtue. Couldn't have sex? Purity. Couldn't fight their enemies? Forgiveness. Had no power? Humility. Lacked wealth? Poverty is holy. To Nietzsche, this was a brilliant psychological trick, one that helped many people survive unbearable lives. But it also created a culture of resentment, guilt, and self-denial. Nietzsche didn't want people to be cruel or immoral. He wanted people to be honest about what they want. If you want power, own it. If you want sex, admit it. If you want respect, admit it. If you want independence, admit it. To Nietzsche, Christian morality hides desire, and hidden desires become poison. 3. Never drink alcohol. This sounds random, right? But Nietzsche wasn't giving health advice, he was giving life advice. He wrote, "There have been 2 great narcotics in European civilization, Christianity and alcohol." Why did he hate alcohol so much? Because alcohol, like comforting beliefs, numbs us. It makes us forget our pain, our ambitions, our dissatisfaction. It tricks us into thinking everything is fine. It gives cheap happiness, and cheap happiness keeps us stuck. Nietzsche believed big achievements require big discomfort. Growth requires clarity, not numbness. Life is painful, and that's okay. He begged us to stop seeking comfort and start seeking purpose. He famously said, "Live dangerously, build your cities on the slopes of Mount Vesuvius." In other words, stop escaping your life, start building your life. 4. God is dead. The most misunderstood line ever. When Nietzsche wrote, "God is dead," he wasn't celebrating. He wasn't laughing. He wasn't mocking religion. He was mourning. He understood that religion once served an important role. It gave moral structure. It gave meaning. It gave community. It gave comfort. It answered big questions. But by the 19th century, belief in God was collapsing. Science, modernity, and philosophy had shaken the foundation. Nietzsche feared this collapse would leave humanity lost, confused, and morally directionless. He believed the hole left by religion should be filled with culture, not entertainment, but philosophy, art, music, literature. He admired the ancient Greeks who used tragedy as therapy, stories that taught courage, humility, wisdom, and emotional strength. He wanted modern culture to have the same power, not academic, not boring, but life-guiding, soul-shaping, emotionally transformative. Nietzsche believed every era has challenges. His era struggled with mass democracy, which amplified envy, atheism, which destroyed traditional meaning. Our era struggles with social media comparison, overwhelming information, loneliness, anxiety, and loss of direction. Nietzsche is still here to help.
Why Nietzsche still matters today. Nietzsche's writing feels surprisingly modern. He speaks directly to the problems of our time. 1. Social media creates envy. Nietzsche helps us decode this envy. We feel jealous of people online. He teaches us to learn from this envy, not hide it. 2. Modern culture is entertainment, not meaning. Nietzsche wants culture to guide us. He believed art and philosophy should make us stronger, not just distracted. 3. Comfort culture weakens us. Nietzsche tells us to live dangerously. Our world is full of comfort. Nietzsche tells us comfort won't make us great. 4. Meaning is hard to find. Nietzsche teaches us to make meaning. If God is dead, meaning isn't given. Meaning is built. Brain, Part 6, Viewer Engagement, Questions and Answers. Q1. What did Nietzsche mean by the Übermensch? ANS, not a superhero, not a master race. An Übermensch is someone who creates their own values, rises above hardship, and lives authentically. Q2, was Nietzsche anti-Christian? ANS, not exactly. He was anti-hypocrisy. He admired Jesus but disliked the guilt-based morality Christianity later evolved into. Q3, why did Nietzsche never marry? ANS, he fell in love several times, but his intensity and eccentricity scared people off. He also struggled with illness that made relationships difficult. Q4, what does God is dead really mean? ANS, it means society no longer believes in religion the way it used to, and now must build meaning in new ways. Q5, why did Nietzsche avoid alcohol? ANS, because he believed anything that numbs you prevents growth. Pain is often the start of transformation. Q6, what is Nietzsche's biggest lesson for modern life? ANS, stop escaping yourself. Start becoming yourself. The final message. Nietzsche's life was tragic, lonely, and full of suffering. His genius went unrecognized while he was alive. He died thinking he was a failure. And yet, his ideas became some of the most important in modern philosophy, psychology, art, and literature. He teaches us that we can face our envy without shame. We can outgrow old moral systems that no longer serve us. We should never numb ourselves with alcohol or illusions. We must confront the chaos left by the decline of religion. And, above all, we must become who we truly are. Nietzsche isn't a philosopher of despair. He's a philosopher of courage, of transformation, of self-overcoming. And he's still here, big mustache and all, guiding us through the psychological storms of modern life.